My husband is 80 years old and married his first love after I died. I accompanied him in his arduous business startup and lived a frugal life all my life. In the end, I died of stomach cancer. But he, leaning on a cane, asked his employees to carry wedding flags for his wedding with his first love. With tears in his eyes, he recounted the 60 years they were forced to be apart. My son looked at him with admiration and said that he had always regarded her as his own mother and would take care of her in her old age and see her off at the end. When I opened my eyes again, I was reborn to my younger days. I don't want the cheating husband and the ungrateful son anymore. 01 Today is an unforgettable day. At the wedding, Sebastian, with white hair all over his head and leaning on a cane, had tears in his old face. Audrey and I are each other's first love and were forced to be apart for 60 years. Today, we can finally continue our previous life dream and compose a lovesick melody together. Even though he is an old man, Sebastian is imitating young people. With the support of his son, he knelt on one knee in front of his first love, who is also an old lady. Audrey, marry me. The company employees below waved wedding flags and let out cheers and applause. Some even sprinkled flower petals beside them and shouted festive slogans together, blessing this twilight couple to finally be together. I was floating in the air and saw Audrey's mouth, which was specially painted with lipstick, blooming into a smile. Then she reached out to Sebastian and let him put a pure gold ring on her. That scene was really extremely romantic. It was a romance that I had never experienced in the 60 years of marriage with Sebastian. From black hair to white hair, with a house full of descendants. I thought our marriage was rather satisfactory. But less than 10 days after I died, he married his first love back home, saying that he is old and wants to find his love vigorously, without leaving any regrets before he dies. He even wants to give half of the savings I left behind through frugality and the family property we created together to his first love's family. But my son Gabriel not only did not stop him. Instead, he held Audrey's wrinkled hand and affectionately called her mom at the wedding. He also promised in front of everyone that he would regard Audrey as his own mother and take care of her in her old age and see her off at the end. My 7th day after death hasn't passed yet. There is already no one to burn incense for me in front of my grave. The father and son turned around and held a wedding. Their faces were full of joy that I finally died. They are really enduring humiliation. I took care of the family for 60 years, thinking that my husband was kind and my son was filial. As a result, I ate half-cooked rice all my life. I sneered coldly. When Sebastian and Audrey entered the bridal chamber, suddenly everything went black before my eyes. When I opened my eyes again, I was reborn to my younger days. As soon as I came to my senses and brought the 3 dishes and 1 soup I had cooked to the dining table, I heard Sebastian sigh. He turned to his son Gabriel and said, "Your mom cooks these dishes every day. I'm a bit tired of eating them. Son, do you want to go out and eat at the newly opened Western restaurant? Dad will treat you." I looked at the calendar. Today is the day when my husband's first love gets divorced. 02 My son is only a senior in high school this year, and his emotions are written all over his face. Originally, he happily agreed to go out to eat with his dad immediately. But when he saw my unhappy expression, he pursed his lips. Alas, several classmates in our class have been there. But mom is so stingy. She definitely won't agree. What a disappointment. Even though I had seen him look at others with admiration, my heart was still stung by this sentence. For whom am I being frugal? During this period when my son is in high school, Sebastian decided to quit his stable job and start a business in the sea. But the company's efficiency is not good and it owes a lot of debts. The clothing factory where I worked also closed down. My former leader asked me to go south to do business together. For my son to be admitted to a good university, I refused and took care of him at home specially. The little money Sebastian occasionally brings home is simply not enough. I live frugally myself and am still wearing old clothes from 10 years ago. I usually pick up waste products to subsidize the family. I squeeze out money to make nutritious meals for the father and son in different ways. I am reluctant to eat meat and give it all to them. But later I got stomach cancer. Reborn, I don't want to worry about this family anymore. So I said to my son indifferently, who said I didn't agree? Isn't your dad going to treat us to Western food? I also want to eat. Let's just leave these dishes on the table for now. Sebastian's face suddenly stiffened. In his plan, I should have a big fight with him. Then he pretends to be angry and takes his son to celebrate for his divorced first love. But he didn't expect me to follow. This is too wasteful. Sebastian touched his nose. Cecilia, you have worked hard cooking so many dishes. Just stay at home and eat. The son echoed beside him, yes, Mom. You only graduated from the night school in the factory. You won't know how to eat Western food even if you go. How could I not understand? It turns out that the father and son have long looked down on me secretly. They dislike my low educational background and my frugality and stinginess. No one respects my labor of taking care of the household. They even think that I don't deserve to eat expensive things. The reason they think this way is nothing but having a comparison. Sure enough, when there was silence at home, Sebastian's newly bought mobile phone suddenly rang. Seeing the word Audrey on the note, Sebastian almost jumped up from his seat. Then he stammered and said to me, Cecilia, I'll go out and answer a phone call. Just talk at home. I had a calm expression. What can't be heard? There are no outsiders now. The father and son looked at each other. Only then did Sebastian press the button to answer the call. A delicate voice came from the receiver. It was Audrey. Big brother Gabriel, Serena and I are waiting for you at the Western restaurant. Why haven't you come yet? Sebastian looked at me and didn't dare to say a word for a long time. I snatched the phone. Don't worry. Our whole family will go there soon. 03 Sebastian was driving in the front. The atmosphere was silent all the way and no one spoke. In that era, Sebastian and I met through a blind date introduced by relatives. In our hometown, everyone is a farmer facing the lus and turning their backs to the sky. The difference is that Sebastian's family supported him to study and be admitted to college. After graduating, he returned to his hometown and got a decent job with a stable income. I gave the opportunity to go to school to my younger brother and followed my aunt in the city to work in a factory. Both of us earned a fixed salary. Sebastian had many social interactions usually. After marriage, I was in charge of the family. Most of the money we saved was given to Sebastian as startup capital. He said that he needed to buy outfits for business talks and bought a mobile phone and then a car. I never doubted him. Now it seems that he is pretending to be rich in front of his first love. Audrey is the only daughter of a scholarly family. Her parents despised Sebastian for being poor. That's why they ordered the two to break up. Now Audrey's life is not going well and she got divorced. Sebastian thinks he can do it again. Cecilia, don't be angry. While waiting for the traffic light, Sebastian stole a glance at me. I was afraid that you would misunderstand. That's why I didn't tell you that I was going out to eat with classmates. Look, I was originally going to take my son with me. The son sitting in the passenger seat also said, Aunt Audrey is very nice. She gave me imported chocolates from abroad last time. Her daughter just transferred to our school and is in the same class as me. This is so coincidental. Audrey and Sebastian are old classmates who graduated from University B. Now her daughter is in the same high school as my son. In my previous life, I believed it and treated Audrey as Sebastian's ordinary classmate. Little did I know that the two of them got married immediately after I died. It turns out that they had been having an affair for a long time. My son seems to have a good impression of Audrey's daughter as well. No wonder in my last life I felt that he had the sign of puppy love. When I nipped it in the bud in time, he held a grudge against me for a lifetime. As soon as we entered the restaurant, the waiter led us to dine by the window. This is the first Western restaurant opened in the province. In the 1990s, it can be said to have a luxurious layout. Very few people can afford to eat here. There are also self-service salads and fruits neatly placed on the counter for people to choose by themselves. But for me who has been reborn, it's nothing unusual. I glanced around the hall. Sebastian secretly pinched my arm. Whispered in my ear, "Don't look around everywhere. It's embarrassing. When eating Western food later, hold the fork in your left hand and the knife in your right hand. Don't remember it wrong." Before I could speak, he hurriedly walked to Audrey's side and greeted her. As a result, Audrey gave him a big hug as soon as she came up. Sebastian subconsciously looked at me and then at Audrey. Suddenly, he didn't know where to put his hands. Audrey seemed to notice that I had come only then. She let go of Sebastian. Cutely stuck out her tongue. "This is our sister-in-law, right? I'm so sorry. I just came back from the United States. The etiquette there is different from that in China. I heard that sister-in-law didn't go to college. Maybe she doesn't know. Audrey is secretly mocking me for being ignorant." But my son followed and said, "Mom, don't be so futile. Aunt Audrey graduated from the English department of University B. She also married a foreigner. This is all very normal." My face darkened. My son's heart has long been toward Audrey. He even criticized me in front of everyone. Sebastian pretended to be a good person and laughed. He urged everyone to sit down and eat. But then another problem arose. When Sebastian reserved the seats at the beginning, he never thought that I would come. 04 At the rectangular dining table, the father and son and Audrey and her daughter were sitting face to face. And I, like an outsider, asked the restaurant waiter to add a seat. I sat at the serving area. The steak iron plate was sizzling with heat. Several times it almost burned me. Sebastian not only didn't see it but also gentlemanly picked up the knife and fork and helped Audrey cut the steak. My son Gabriel also imitated him and helped Audrey's daughter Serena cut the meat. I sat motionless on the chair and put the knife and fork on the table with a slap. Sebastian frowned and only then remembered me. With a hint of disgust in his tone, "Didn't I tell you to hold the fork in your left hand and the knife in your right hand? Can't you remember such a thing?" Audrey covered her mouth in an extremely affected way and said, "Oh my God, sister-in-law has never eaten Western food. Big brother Gabriel, you can cut the meat for her too." Sebastian didn't think it was a big deal, she's not without hands. I smiled, suddenly remembering that the first time I ate steak in my previous life was when my daughter-in-law wanted to take me with her. The two of them ate on their own. But I didn't know anything. I sat nervously on the seat and didn't know what to do. Only my daughter-in-law patiently taught me. "Mom, eat however is convenient for you. Don't treat yourself badly." If I were Cecilia from my previous life, facing Audrey with delicate makeup and excellent education, I would probably be too inferiority to raise my head. But now I am an old lady in her 70s and 80s. After getting stomach cancer, I haven't eaten meat anymore. Now I am thick-skinned and do whatever I want. I called the waiter beside me and asked him to cut the meat for me. I asked for a pair of chopsticks. Under Audrey's surprised gaze, I directly put the meat in my mouth and said while eating, "What Western food rules? In China, you have to follow the local customs and use chopsticks." Sebastian's face turned red with anger. But because of his face, he didn't say anything in front of Audrey. When leaving, Sebastian said it was too dark and the road was not safe. He went to send the mother and daughter upstairs. I waited in the car for a long time but didn't wait for Sebastian to come back. When I went downstairs to the community, I found that the two were saying goodbye reluctantly. Audrey hesitated to speak and sighed, "Big brother Gabriel, these years after we broke up, it hasn't been easy for you either." "I see, sister-in-law, she." As soon as it came to me, Sebastian impatiently interrupted, "Don't mention her. She has no culture and doesn't know many characters." "Then what are your plans after you just finish the divorce procedures?" "I will listen to Big Brother Gabriel's arrangements," Audrey said shyly. "I named my daughter Serena in Chinese because I have never forgotten you." The two looked at each other affectionately. That look was almost drawing. Sebastian even patted his chest and promised Audrey that he would help bear the expenses where money was needed. But in less than 2 days, I was just about to take out my passbook hidden under the closet and go to the hospital for a physical examination. But I found that the money was gone. 05 Sebastian, have you seen my passbook? My first reaction was to question Sebastian. In my previous life, my passbook disappeared as well. Sebastian said that it was probably stolen by a thief and blamed me for not hiding it in a good place. I believed it at that time and felt so guilty that I didn't eat well for several days. But besides Sebastian, who else knew where I put my passbook? He said he would help Audrey solve her financial difficulties. Then the money at home was lost. What a coincidence! I came to my senses. Sebastian still said the same thing. After scolding me head on, he pretended to slam the door and leave. Then he hurriedly drove away. I took a taxi and chased after him. I saw Sebastian walk into the inpatient department of the hospital, put his arm around Audrey's shoulder and comforted her softly. It's okay. Serena just has a minor illness. Children are prone to fever and get pneumonia. She will get better soon. Audrey was wearing a plain long dress today and also had a light nude makeup. She wiped her tears weakly and leaned on Sebastian's shoulder. Big brother Gabriel, fortunately you are here. Since I divorced and returned to China after divorcing Serena's father, I don't know what to do. Woo-woo. Men are most afraid of seeing their first loves cry. Moreover, when he was most powerless back then, he met the person with the best conditions. Sebastian held Audrey's hand with a face full of distress and was about to say something. But he was interrupted by his son's loud voice. The son just walked out of the ward. When he saw me, he shouted, "Mom! Why did you come to the hospital?" 06 My son's tone was very unpleasant. As if my appearance hindered the warmth between Sebastian and Audrey. His voice was sharp. What are you doing at the hospital if you don't stay at home? Then what about you? Shouldn't you be at school? I suddenly felt sad. Today, my son told me from the school phone booth that the teacher was going to give makeup lessons to several top students and would come home late. But now he is making up lessons at the hospital bed of Audrey's daughter. He didn't even attend the main classes during the day. My son was speechless for a moment. After Sebastian beside him heard the commotion, he quickly moved away the hand that was holding Audrey's and stood up in a panic. Audrey, on the other hand, wiped her tears calmly. With red eyes, she said to me, "How did sister-in-law find this place?" Serena had pneumonia and a fever. It was an emergency. That's why I told Big Brother Gabriel. Thank you all so much. After saying that, she choked up again. If there was no other way, I really didn't want to trouble others. Sebastian quickly comforted Audrey. Suddenly he remembered something and frowned and questioned me. "Cecilia, did you actually follow me? I already said that I am an old classmate of Audrey. She got divorced. Her parents at home wouldn't let her go back. It's not easy for her to be alone with a child outside. Serena has pneumonia and a fever. She is too busy." Sebastian became more and more excited as he spoke. Finally, he said righteously, "There is nothing between the two of us." I laughed. I didn't expect Sebastian to be so shameless that he could even say the word innocent. I said coldly, "I came to the hospital for a physical examination." "Just right. Now that both of you are here, who stole my 10,000 yuan passbook? If you don't return it, I will call the police." 10,000 yuan? The mixed-race little girl lying on the hospital bed was hanging an infusion bottle. In a daze, she asked Audrey, "Mom, does it cost so much money for me to see a doctor for pneumonia?" Audrey awkwardly wanted to cover her daughter's mouth. But it was too late. In a hurry, she knocked over her bag. The fixed deposit passbook inside also fell out. I bent down to pick it up. My name was written on it. At this time, a household with 10,000 yuan was much more valuable than later. The passbook is filled with my severance pay from being laid off and the money I saved up by picking up waste. Sebastian gave it away to outsiders so easily. He also pretends to be a rich man, arranging for his first love's daughter to stay in the most luxurious ward and using imported special drugs. Audrey's daughter has American citizenship, and the medical expenses cannot be reimbursed by medical insurance. Now it's Sebastian's turn to sweat on his forehead. Knowing that he is in the wrong, he said to me guiltily, "Cecilia, we are all family. Let's talk nicely. Don't call the police. Are we a family? You and your first love are a family. I retorted without hesitation. You also said that my passbook was stolen by a thief. So it turns out that you are the thief who stole the money. Sebastian's face turned pale and then red. Especially when he heard the words, first love, he subconsciously touched his nose. He didn't expect that I already knew their relationship. Just as he was about to explain something, the son interrupted indignantly beside him, Mom, so what if Dad took this passbook? Serena needs money for medical treatment. Can't we help? As the son spoke, he also wanted to come over and snatch the passbook from my hand. He is taller than me. If it weren't for Audrey pretending to persuade him beside him, the son would have pinned me to the ground long ago. After I slapped his hand away, he still said angrily, Mom, how can you be so cold-blooded? Look how elegant Aunt Audrey is. You are just like a shrew. I was almost angry and amused. This is my good son. He looks down on me and stands on the same side as his dad, nodding and bowing to Audrey like a dog. Yes, I am a shrew. I pointed at Sebastian, who was pretending to be dead, and scolded, Aren't you Sebastian a big boss of the company? If you have the ability, don't use the money I earned by picking up waste to give to your first love. Have you no shame? Who told you to pick up waste? The son's face flushed with anger and he shouted with a stiff neck, with a mom who picks up waste like you don't know how embarrassing I am at school. I would rather be the son of Aunt Audrey who graduated from University B. I don't want to recognize you as a rural mom. The son was so angry that he spoke without thinking. His voice was so loud that the whole building could hear it. When people are extremely angry, they speak their true feelings. 07 I looked at my son in disbelief. My eyes swept over Sebastian who didn't say a word and his gloating first love Audrey. The few of them stood together as if they were a family. Sebastian loves to save face. When doing business outside, he eats and uses good things. The money is almost all spent. If it weren't for me picking up waste to subsidize the family, my son Gabriel wouldn't even be able to eat 3 dishes and 1 soup now. Moreover, at this time in my previous life, Sebastian's company was on the verge of bankruptcy. Later, we collected waste step by step and became the largest in the whole city. Then we established a factory and switched to manufacturing, completing the accumulation of the first pot of gold. As a result, I worked hard all my life, but no one was grateful from beginning to end. In the end, they still disliked me for picking up waste and thought it was embarrassing. I was so angry that I slapped my son directly, Gabriel. Your tuition and living expenses are all earned by my labor. If you think it's embarrassing, then don't go to school. Your mom's family is rural farmers. Your dad's family is also farmers. You yourself are the descendant of farmers. After reading some books, you think you are noble and look down on people. I felt that my internal organs were churning. There was a bloody smell in my mouth and I almost vomited. But I held it back. Just right. I don't want to be your mom anymore. Tomorrow I will go get a divorce with your dad. I said hoarsely to Audrey, if you like being a mistress who picks up waste, then I will fulfill you. I don't want this ungrateful father and son anymore. 08 After saying that, I held the passbook in my hand and left without looking back. Not long after I walked out of the ward, I vomited the blood in my stomach. Auntie, are you okay? The little girl who was taking the elevator with me was so scared that she quickly supported me and took me for an examination. Ironically, my husband and my own son are not as good as a stranger. In my previous life, I was frugal and afraid to spend money going to the hospital. I didn't tell my family when I felt uncomfortable in my stomach. As a result, neither of the father and son noticed that I was feeling unwell. In the end, it was my daughter-in-law who found the paper I threw in the trash with blood and took me to the hospital for hospitalization. I thought it was arranged by my son and praised my son's filial piety to others. After a long time, my son outsourced his filial piety. Everything was done by my daughter-in-law. Thinking of this, I raised my head. Suddenly, I felt that the little girl in front of me looked familiar. Girl, thank you. What's your name? The little girl helped me get a cup of boiled water and said crisply, "Auntie, my name is Isabella. I just started cleaning in the hospital today." The little girl in front of me was wearing loose school uniform. Her withered and yellow hair was slightly curly. Her face was thin and her facial features were very similar to those of my daughter-in-law in my previous life. The name is exactly the same. I suddenly remembered that I chose this daughter-in-law before because of her warm heart. Isabella's parents passed away early and she grew up alone. Unfortunately, in the end, due to tuition problems, she didn't finish her senior year of high school. Later, she went south to work. At a young age, she became a gold medal salesperson and later became a senior executive of another well-known manufacturing company. At a certain business gathering, I couldn't find the meeting place. Everyone else looked at me coldly because I was an old lady dressed plainly. It was Isabella who took the initiative to lead me to the location. After learning my identity, she was particularly surprised and said that she admired the entrepreneurial story of me and Sebastian. If I had known that I would earn money by picking up waste back then, I would grit my teeth and finish reading while working. Thinking of this, I smiled and took Isabella's hand. "You are a student of number 1 high school, right? I heard that you have very good academic results. Auntie wants to sponsor you to go to school." I immediately gave Isabella a large sum of 200 yuan and stuffed the cash into her pocket. I exchanged contact information with her and urged her to study hard. The little girl was in tears and said that she would definitely live up to my expectations. My depressed mood suddenly became comfortable. Whoever is good to me, I will help whoever. When people live a new life, they should do whatever they want. 09 The hospital examination results also came out. I found it early in this life. The problem with my stomach is not very serious. Except for malnutrition, all the functions of my body are good, much better than when I was paralyzed on the bed when I was old. When I got home, I started packing up. Since I have decided not to want the cheating husband and the ungrateful son, I have to cut it off completely. Before long, Sebastian also came back. Seeing me putting clothes into a snake-skin bag, he frowned and pulled me. "Cecilia, what are you doing?" What the son said in the hospital just now was out of anger. "You also slapped him in public." Now the son also knows he was wrong. I let him go to school. Audrey specifically told me that we, the couple, had a quarrel. I'm sorry to us. Let me not go to see her in the future. Are you satisfied now? Don't be unreasonable anymore. Sebastian's angry look made me want to laugh when I saw it. Just now in front of his first love, he was afraid of showing weakness and let Audrey know that he didn't have much money in his hand. When his son snatched my passbook, he didn't even fart. Now Audrey takes a step back and comes to me angrily again. I threw the marriage certificate and household registration book in front of Sebastian. Said coldly, "Who is making trouble with you? After we get divorced, you can see your first love every day? The son just likes others. I don't have to wait until tomorrow. The Civil Affairs Bureau hasn't closed yet. Let's get divorced today." Sebastian has a very strong self-esteem and is also chauvinistic. Being proposed divorce by me, his chest was heaving with anger. "Cecilia, don't be ungrateful. Who else would want a divorced woman like you?" I sneered. "Audrey is also divorced. Isn't there you rushing to be her daughter's father? You don't have the guts to admit what you did. No wonder Audrey's family looked down on you back then. You are still an intellectual. Your thinking is so futile." I returned all the words Sebastian said to me. Sebastian being looked down upon by Audrey's family has always been his heart disease. Otherwise, he wouldn't be making a fuss about remarrying his first love after he became famous and successful in his 80s. Now that I hit his heart, he angrily picked up the household registration book and went to the Civil Affairs Bureau with me to get a divorce. This era is not like later generations. There is no cooling off period for divorce. As soon as the staff stamped the seal, the divorce was completed. Sebastian was also in a fit of anger and knew that he was in the wrong. So he left his newly bought private car to me and only took the unit house where he lives now. I didn't have many things at home. I took some clothes and savings and left without looking back. Driving south overnight, taking advantage of the wave of economic development in the 1990s, I started doing business vigorously. At present, there is unmined gold everywhere. 10 I saw Sebastian and my son again 3 months later. After the divorce, Sebastian didn't have much cash on hand. At first, he still wanted to pretend to be rich. He sold the house in the family compound and also wanted to hospitalize Audrey's daughter in the VIP ward. He said that he took my passbook by mistake that day and it was very unpleasant. In fact, he still had a lot of money in his hand. Audrey thought she had found the right big boss. Immediately coaxing Sebastian to remarry, and also wanted to hold a grand wedding and hold it in a church. Sebastian gritted his teeth and used the remaining money from selling the house to buy an expensive wedding ring for Audrey. After getting married, Audrey never touched the spring water with her 10 fingers. Sebastian, who had never cooked before, also learned to cook for her. Sometimes when he was busy socializing, Audrey took the 2 children to eat Western food in restaurants. In less than 3 months, the money from selling the house was almost spent. Sebastian's company couldn't pay wages, and the employees also jointly filed for labor arbitration. My son, who used to pretend to be rich and invite classmates to eat in school, now eats cabbage and boiled noodles in the cafeteria every meal. This was told to me by Isabella in a letter. After I negotiated a big project in the South, I came back to attend Isabella's parents' meeting. The little girl has made progress again in the first mock exam for the college entrance examination. I send her living expenses every month and tell her not to be frugal and eat more high-quality eggs and milk. In the past, she was so dizzy from hunger in class and couldn't concentrate. She was thinking about how to earn tuition fees every day. Now that her body's nutrition has caught up, her mind has become active and her grades have also improved. When I saw Isabella, I thought of myself in the past. If my family was willing to support me to study, maybe my life would be different. Just when I was full of praise for Isabella's grades, my son Gabriel found me in the school and was immediately stunned. "Mom, why are you here?" He quickly understood. "Did you regret it after divorcing Dad? Want to come back and continue to take care of the 2 of us?" I was looking through Isabella's test paper and ignored him. The son said to me coquettishly, "It's not impossible. The food cooked in the cafeteria is too unpalatable." "Mom, I want to eat meat." If it was in the past, my son would soften my heart as soon as he opened his mouth, and I would go back and stew braised pork for him. But now, I took off my sunglasses and had a very faint smile. "Why, doesn't your Aunt Audrey who came back from the United States take you out to eat Western food anymore?" The son's face suddenly turned pale and he stammered without speaking. Isabella came over and hugged my arm. "Gabriel, you are so shameless. I've heard that you used to think it was embarrassing that Cecilia picked up waste to support you. You said in school that she is not your mother. Now that you have a new mother and life is not good, do you want to call Auntie back to be your nanny?" My son Gabriel was flushed with shame. His grades in the first mock exam for the college entrance examination dropped this time, and he will be kicked out of the key class soon. And Isabella did well in several exams. The school teacher told me that she was promoted to the Tsinghua and Peking University class. Sebastian, who also came to the parents' meeting, was stunned after entering the classroom. He saw me there and unnaturally pushed away Audrey, who was holding his wrist. He quickly walked up to me and stammered, "Cecilia? Long time no see. You are very beautiful now. Are you doing well?" This awkward line is exactly the same as what he said when he was flirting with Audrey back then. I smiled slightly. "Thank you. The parents' meeting is about to start." Sebastian immediately rushed Audrey to leave and told her to find her daughter who is at the bottom of the international class. Then the father and son courteously pulled out the chair and asked me to sit in my son Gabriel's seat. But I stayed motionless beside Isabella. "I am here to attend Isabella's parents' meeting." The father and son's faces stiffened. The son looked at me in disbelief even more. "Mom, I am your own son. Isabella is clearly an orphan. Isabella mocked them with a "Tut tut tut, Miss Cecilia is now my godmother. You two trash don't deserve her to represent you at the meeting. You two pieces of rubbish, stay away from me quickly. The stench is reaching Cecilia." 17 After the parents' meeting, I was about to take Isabella to a restaurant to celebrate, but I was stopped by Sebastian at the parking place. He held onto my car door breathlessly, his eyes full of resentment and unwillingness. "Cecilia, are you being kept?" I didn't understand. "What?" Sebastian straightened his tie and snorted contemptuously. "Audrey told me that the clothes you are wearing are not cheap at all. The sunglasses on your head are genuine famous brands. Where did you get so much money in just a few months?" Halfway through speaking, Sebastian's eyes looked at my driver. "You also found a young man?" Seeing Audrey's jealous eyes not far away, I finally understood what was going on. Immediately sneered coldly. Then I waved to the driver and told him to get out of the car. I slapped Sebastian hard and then threw Sebastian over my shoulder onto the asphalt road. Audrey let out a sharp screech and rushed over to check Sebastian's injury. But I put on my sunglasses indifferently and crossed my arms. "I hit my son before and forgot to hit you, this old bastard too." I took out my personal business card from my wallet and threw it on Sebastian's face. "Go to my secretary for the money for medical treatment. Also, call me General Manager Cecilia from now on." Audrey picked up my business card. After looking at it, she exclaimed, "Chuangying Manufacturing? Are you actually the boss of this company?" I didn't pay any attention to them. I got in the car neatly and left Sebastian with car exhaust. I left gracefully. In the private car, I asked Isabella, "Do you think I am too shrewish? Unreasonable? That was a great hit. Sebastian is so mean. He actually dared to question your ability. I think that one slap was too light." Isabella beside me looked at me adoringly and said that she would also be such a cool woman in the future. I shook my head with a smile. After becoming an iron-blooded old lady, I found that if you are not afraid of causing trouble and dare to fight back, others will not dare to neglect you. The more afraid you are of bothering others and endure grievances to dedicate yourself, the more others will look down on you. Just like me in my previous life, I was busy for the father and son all my life, but I still can't compare to Audrey, this first love. But now, Audrey has really become Sebastian's person by his side, but instead she has become a mosquito blood. The secretary told me more than once that Sebastian called the number on my business card and said that he didn't need compensation for medical expenses, but wanted to talk to me about my son and try to enhance our relationship. You know, in the past, Sebastian would fall asleep as soon as he got off work. He was even tired of saying a word to me. Now, as the corporate legal person of an emerging enterprise, the value I show is higher than Audrey's. He started to fawn on me again. I asked the secretary to blacklist Sebastian's number. Continued to be busy with my booming career. But after a few months, the secretary suddenly told me nervously, "Sebastian just changed his number and contacted him, saying that my son is going to jump off a building and commit suicide. The college entrance examination is coming soon. I plan to go back and accompany Isabella through the most important period. By the way, I will ask about the situation of my son Gabriel." It turns out that Gabriel's admiration for Audrey's daughter Serena was discovered by Sebastian. The son couldn't stand the oppressive atmosphere at home. He stole Sebastian's saved private money and wanted to elope with Serena. Sebastian was so angry that he wanted to break his son's leg with a stick. The son still shouted that if Sebastian hadn't insisted on marrying Audrey, he and Serena would have been together long ago. He also said that when Sebastian stole my passbook to see Serena's illness back then he took the family's money and learned from his father. But Serena didn't admit that she had a relationship between a man and a woman with his son. The stolen money also disappeared without a trace. The son was so sad that he wanted to jump off a building and commit suicide at school. The school teacher quickly asked the firefighters for help and laid a safety air cushion below. Number 1 high school is the best key high school in the province. When such news came out, even the leaders of the Education Bureau were shocked. In the end, it was only when Audrey saw that the matter had become serious that she said that the money was stolen by Serena under her instigation and had been spent on her natal family. Because Audrey's father got into trouble and was reported. She originally wanted to cling to a rich man and take money to clear the relationship. As a result, Sebastian seemed glamorous on the surface, but in fact he was a poor man. He still needed her to pay for living expenses. After hearing this, the son fainted on the spot. When he fell to the bottom of the building, he accidentally hit his leg and was permanently disabled in one foot. But Sebastian had no intention of paying attention to his son. Hearing that his first love married him only for his money, he angrily grabbed a brick and hit Audrey on the back of her head immediately. Audrey was not to be outdone and scratched Sebastian's face with her nails. The two fought in the school and were immediately controlled by the police and taken to the detention center to reflect. Isabella enthusiastically told me these gossips. I helplessly put a piece of meat in her bowl. Okay, eat quickly. You still have to go to evening self-study later. Isabella smiled and put a chicken leg in my bowl. Mom, you eat more too. You've had a hard day at work. Isabella has transferred her household registration to my name. I am now her guardian. The mother and daughter of us looked at each other and smiled, enjoying the rare warmth. On the day of Isabella's college entrance examination, I personally sent her to the examination room. When the last exam was over, Isabella happily threw herself into my arms and said that the test paper was very simple. I also happily hugged her back. When I looked up, I saw Sebastian and my son. Sebastian had an unshaven beard and was dressed in a slovenly manner. He supported his limping son. The father and son were both silent and didn't say a word. When he saw me, his eyes lit up for a moment, and then he rubbed his hands awkwardly and called my name from not far away, Cecilia. Don't go. Cecilia. General Manager Cecilia. Wait a moment. What's the matter? I patted Isabella, who was baring her teeth to show comfort. Then I looked at Sebastian calmly. Sebastian was stung by my eyes. He began to speak incoherently. Cecilia, no? General Manager Cecilia. I have been dreaming about you these days. I dreamed that we grew old together and lived happily and affectionately until we were in our 70s and 80s. I impatiently interrupted him, then I died of stomach cancer. You immediately married your first love. Sebastian's eyes were full of red bloodshot eyes. Then he covered his face and cried out loud. I regret it. I really regret it. They tortured me to death in order to get my inheritance. My son didn't care about me even after getting the money. Only you were truly good to me in my previous life. I'll divorce Audrey now. Can we start over? Sebastian was crying with snot and tears, looking at me pitifully. It's so ridiculous. I don't want to be General Manager Cecilia anymore. Start over and be a cow and a horse for him again? I sneered and gave him a blank look. Sebastian, you don't deserve it. Then I turned around and left gracefully with Isabella. From now on, I probably will never see them again. I have my own career and an excellent and filial daughter. I also took the adult college entrance examination to improve my diploma. The mentality is getting younger and younger as I live. In this life, I want to be free and live only for myself. The end.